Villains. Probably the most important thing in any movie, TV show, play, anime, whatever. The villain is what keeps the people coming back, okay? I would argue it is more important to have an iconic villain than a great main character, but that's just my personal opinion. I also believe it's more difficult to be a good villain in a good TV show than be a villain in a movie. I think that comes down to run times or writing. It's easier to delve into the motivations and the starts of a villain when you're doing it in a TV show, and that could leave room for failure. In this video, I want to go over some of my favorite, and in some cases, my least favorite villains in fiction. And some of these, actually about half of these, are fan submissions, which I love that I've reached the point in, of this channel where people can actually, build a full tier list off of stuff that you say. And if you have a tier list that you want me to do, feel free to put it in the Discord down below, okay? Go to tiermaker.com, make your own tier list completely free. And I'm very curious to see what you guys can make, and just put it in the Discord down below. And I don't want to have a super long intro, however, I've noticed a significant change in how many subscribers come back when I do this. Please consider a like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and that would be pretty crazy. We are on pace to do that. We're roughly at 25,000 right now, give or take a few hundred, which is, again, absolutely insane. Keep coming with the support, and I'll keep coming with the entertainment. No long-winded intro today. Let's get this going. And 3, 2, 1. Joffrey from Game of Thrones, bro. Okay? No. I can already hear some people. They're like, Joffrey's a pretty polarizing character. Okay, let's just say that. You love to hate him, and you hate him. Joffrey is quite possibly one of the most hated characters in the entirety of fiction. This guy was so hated as a character that people started sending death threats to the actual actor's house. Okay? It is, he has to be probably the most widely hated person to ever play anybody. And damn does he do it well, bro. Joffrey is so unlikable in Game of Thrones. He's not even a good villain. Let me just rip the band-aid off right away. He's not going in peak. I don't even know if I'll put him in great. He's just so unlikable. He's not a villain in terms of the traditional sense. He's the guy that the protagonist is working against. No, he is just so annoying that you hate him more than the actual villain. I would argue Tywin Lannister is more of a villain at this point in the story than Joffrey is. But you just hate Joffrey so much that you kind of just like Tywin. People like Tywin Lannister. They just hated Joffrey. Joffrey really wasn't doing it. The parts that you hate about Joffrey is he was such an insufferable kid. But he didn't even do anything to deserve it. Okay, there's going to be other villains. I'm going to be covering more villains in the Game of Thrones TV show that I think are going to go higher in them because I think they're more formidable. Joffrey, though, because of how well he was acted and written just to being unlikable. Imagine if Joffrey, though, was also a genius tactician. Okay? He would be a great to a peak villain. If he stayed alive longer and actually became a good general and a good fighter, I would put him higher. But the fact that he's basically useless and just insufferable, I'm going to put him in good. Writing, though, I would put him in peak. But you understand what I'm saying. As a villain, I need to feel that you are formidable. Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad. Listen. Bro, Juan Carlo Esposito is the man, okay? What a great actor. I'll tell you, this man got typecasted so hard, but he got typecasted as the badass villain. That is Gustavo Fring. Gustavo Fring, I feel, is the best villain in Breaking Bad. I'm just going to spoil it. I didn't put Walter White on here because I think it's weird if you put the main character of the show as the villain. I understand, but technically Walter White is the protagonist. Gustavo Fring, to me, represented Walter White before he became Heisenberg. Gustavo Fring, every single time he is on a scene, you're instantly on edge. And, like, there was a weird thing back in, like, the early to mid-2000s where AMC just had bangers, bro. We're going to talk about it later on in the video when we get into The Walking Dead. But I think it's crazy that AMC went from having Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, The Walking Dead, to AMC Plus is just The Walking Dead universe. AMC had one of the craziest fall-offs in entertainment history, but Breaking Bad... let me just say this. I'm going to rank my favorite TV shows in another tier list, but let me just spoil it for you really quick. I think Breaking Bad is one of the most perfect TV shows ever made. It is one of the most consistent TV shows of all time. To the point that there's only a few TV shows that I would put against it in terms of being consistently good the entire time. But a lot of that is because of Gustavo Fring. Dude, you can put him in peak. I'm going to put him in peak. No. Like, we're going above. I was going to put him in great. I didn't think I was going to put him in peak, but I'm going to put him in peak. The more I think about it, Gustavo Fring is the best villain in Breaking Bad if you don't count Walter White. And I'm not going to count him because he's the protagonist. Like, I just can't. Some people suggested it. I'm not going to do it. Peak Gustavo Fring. I don't regret it. Dracula from Castlevania. It actually kind of hurt my feelings that nobody suggested him. Dracula from Castlevania is such a great villain and an underrated show. Castlevania, to me, is one of the best anime... actually, no, I'll go even farther. I think Castlevania is one of the greatest series that Netflix has ever produced in their time of being a company. I enjoyed Castlevania more than I enjoyed Stranger Things. Now, granted, I fell out of love with Stranger Things. Let me just spoil that right now. Castlevania hit. It just hit, bro. Now, I'll say this right now. When I said in the beginning that being a good villain is more important than being a good protagonist, that is Castlevania to a T. Dracula is the best character in the show. Like, Trevor's pretty cool. Trevor Belmont. The wizard chick is pretty cool. Alucard's awesome, but, like, Alucard's cool because he's like Dracula. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you. If you haven't seen Castlevania, it's basically about, like, vampire hunters, but way cooler, and the animation is, like, at Jujutsu Kaisen level. Okay, it's just peak level animation, and you love the action in it. Dracula is such a weirdly well-written character. What I mean by that is... Season 1 of Castlevania is the best season. It just is, because Dracula is such a well-written character. Like, I want a full show on Dracula. How he became Dracula. How he became from a human to the king of the vampires. To having the walking castle. To, like, the first episode of Castlevania is one of the most effective, like, pieces of, like, justification for the villain. Like, you agree with, like, Dracula in my mind was justified. Kind of justified. But you really like Dracula. Great. I wanted more time with him. The reason that I gotta put Gustavo Fring at peak is Gustavo Fring was around for like 2 to 3 seasons. We only had really 1 season of Dracula, and it was just great there. And the entire rest of the series, they teased with bringing him back because of how good Dracula was. But we didn't get that extra time with Dracula like we did with Fring. Grifith from Berserk. Yes, some people were mad that I put him on here because he's more of a manga villain. Like, we haven't had like a full adaptation of Berserk. If you've read Berserk, you realize why. But I want to talk about Grifith, okay? I also teased I was going to make a Berserk video, so this is kind of like a way of teasing that. Grifith is one of the most intriguing villains I've ever come across. Like, when you meet Grifith, he is the quintessential treacherous twink. This man, the moment you see him, you're like, okay, bro, who is this guy? Come on, like, come on, he can't be that bad. And then the eclipse happens. But on that point into the eclipse, you understand Grifith. Like, okay, yeah, Grifith He's a well-loved leader. His men would do anything to make him happy. He has a dream. He'll sacrifice those that hold him dear to achieve this dream. Like, if people want, like, to ask me, like, what is the message of Berserk, it is the juggling of morality and ambition. How far are you willing to go? How much of your humanity are you willing to throw away to achieve your ambition? For Grifith, is he wanted his own kingdom. And when you watch the entirety of, like, the 1998, like, original run of Berserk, like that, like the animated TV show, that's how I was able to get him on here. Grifith, you get to see the full spectrum of him going for a man of the people to the literal, like, Antichrist. Okay? I don't want to spoil it too far, but it's been out for decades now. Grifith is such a cool character. However, based off what we've seen in the TV shows, I can't use stuff in the manga because we need more stuff out of him. But I would argue Grifith automatically goes in the great. Like, he is such a great villain for Guts to play off of. I'm going to put him in great. Like, I want more of Berserk so we can see more of Grifith. That's part of it. But yeah, no, Grifith, great. Easily. Read Berserk if you haven't already, but prepare yourself mentally. Homelander from The Boys. Let's be real here. We all know where he's going, bro. Like, come on. Homelander, in my mind, is the best villain. He might be the best comic book villain of all time. Like, he might... The only villain that I would put against him in terms of, like, being as well-written as he is with the amount of screen time would be, like, Heath Ledger's Joker. But the reason that I said being a good villain in a TV show is more difficult than being a good villain in a movie is you had... How much runtime did Heath Ledger's Joker have? Like, I want to be respectful because I think, like, what happened with Heath Ledger is a genuine tragedy. However, we got to be honest here. Homelander, we've had 4 seasons with Homelander, and we're going to have a 5th one. Just about every scene that Homelander is in is a 10 out of 10. He is deranged, intimidating. Like, the presence that Homelander brings to every single scene that he's in is... The first 2 seasons are 10 out of 10 every scene. But, like, Homelander now, people are saying that current Homelander doesn't have the same sting that he had back then. He's still a 9 out of 10 villain. Like, a 9 out of 10 Homelander is, like, that's considered bad because of how good Homelander was in his prime. It's peak. Homelander, like, I would put Homelander above Gustavo Fring, honestly, because we've had more time with Homelander. If Homelander was a poorly written mess of a character, The Boys would not nearly have done as well as it is doing right now. And he's one of the few characters that is more effective in the TV show adaptation than he is in the comics. Comics Homelander is a worse written character than Anthony Starr's Homelander. Peak. Amazing. Love it. Cersei from Game of Thrones. Okay, now we're getting into what I'm talking about. Joffrey is a well-written character, but he's not a formidable villain. Cersei is a very well-written character and a very formidable villain. She almost makes it into peak. But I'm gonna dock her a point because Cersei just weirdly becomes stupid in the final season of Game of Thrones. And yeah, part of the reason that I included 4 villains from Game of Thrones is I want to talk shit about Game of Thrones Season 8. It's awful. One of, actually, probably the most disappointing season of television ever produced in the history of entertainment. It's so bad. Like, I hate it. Cersei is made more dumb in the final season, bro. Like, part of what made Cersei so good is that she was, like, the female version of Tywin Lannister. And they play with this. If Cersei was a man, she would be Tywin. Like, 100%. She has, like, that, like, strategic element to her. She has, like, that protective mother syndrome over her children that just suck. Her relationship with Jaime Lannister. Like, Cersei, basically the entire series is goated up until the final season where they just weirdly make her dumb. I'm going to put her just on the cusp of peakdom. But she's, I'm just going to spoil it, the best villain in the entirety of Game of Thrones. She just is. The other ones are going to be below her, but Cersei is probably the best. I just have to say that. The governor from The Walking Dead. Okay. Isn't it kind of weird that The Walking Dead, like looking back on it now, was the best show on TV? Like, that's not an overstatement. The Walking Dead was viewed as the greatest thing on television for years. Like, to give you an idea of how long, okay, The Walking Dead was airing in terms of, like, how long it was at its peak. Back then, do you know what what made people think The Walking Dead was great? It got more views than the Oscars. Who the fuck watches the Oscars anymore? Like, genuinely speaking, who actually watches that? The Walking Dead was so big for so long that back then, people actually watched the Oscars. Like, The Walking Dead was the king of TV for a while. People viewed Walking Dead better than they viewed Breaking Bad. But the AMC wouldn't stop milking The Walking Dead for every ounce of cash that it was worth. That it just got milked into oblivion. Like, I'm telling you this right now. AMC, I went down a whole rabbit hole with why Walking Dead is going the way that it is. Did you know that every single director and showrunner over The Walking Dead for the first 4 seasons, which are widely considered its best seasons, were all fired because they said they wanted to end it after 7 seasons? And they were going to do the same thing with Breaking Bad, but Mark Flanagan, the guy who made Breaking Bad, threatened to walk away from the entire thing if they didn't let them end it the way that they did, because they understood how to end a TV show. AMC didn't want to end Walking Dead because they would have to go into bankruptcy. Walking Dead carried the entire channel of AMC for so long that if Walking Dead were to end, the entirety of AMC would have gone bankrupt. Well, that's why AMC Plus is... I'm not even kidding you. The entirety of AMC Plus is just Walking Dead content. Walking Dead has become a bastardized version of what it originally was, and it bums me out just to say it. But the governor is... He's a better villain than Joffrey. Better villain than Joffrey. More formidable, but Joffrey's better written. He just is. I'm sorry. Like, honestly speaking, yeah. Joffrey is a better written character than 90% of the cast of The Walking Dead. He just is. Negan from The Walking Dead. Negan, in my mind, is the best Walking Dead villain. I think they should have ended on... If you were to ask me how Walking Dead should have ended, it should have ended with Rick killing Negan. Okay, fine. You want to keep him alive for a little bit longer? There should have been one final duel between Negan and Rick. To give you an idea of how quickly The Walking Dead fell off, The Walking Dead lost a grand total of 30% of their viewers right after Glenn died. That's a real stat, by the way. The moment Glenn died, 30% of the viewers dropped the show. I dropped the show after the Negan season because they didn't kill him off. That is so dumb. I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan too. Awesome actor. I want him to play Conquest in Invincible. But come on, bro. You have to kill off Negan. Stop. Like, you kill off all of the fan favorite characters, but we have to keep Negan alive? Oh, and also, writing-wise, it makes zero sense. It just doesn't make any sense at all. I'm sorry. Well, Glenn would have wanted him alive. No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't want him alive. That's dumb, dude. Oh, Carl would have wanted him alive. No, he wouldn't. That's a lie, bro. And you killed off Carl. Who cares, bro? Awful. Okay. Reset. Negan is a great villain, but how The Walking Dead went is awful. I'm going to put him at the bottom of great. I think Grifith is better as a villain. I don't know. Grifith has stood in my mind longer than pretty much every villain on here because of the Eclipse. It's just that bad. Qimir! I'm gonna be real. I just wanted to dunk on the Acolyte really quick. What an absolute piss poor, awful. It's so bad, man. Like, it bums me out that Star Wars has gone to the point that if they don't make a series that relies so heavily on nostalgia and cameos, that Disney legitimately can't write. Like, I'm sorry, I went into the Acolyte trying to find a way to like it. The only thing that they had that was good was Qimir, because he had that awesome fight scene midway through the series. But by the end of it, they turned him into a love interest. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Stop making every single villain into a heartthrob by the end of the series. It's just dumb, bro. I'm like, the ending of Acolyte reads like a bad Star Wars fanfiction. And Darth Vader used Force Choke to bring me closer, gently caressing my body. I'm not kidding! Acolyte uses the villain, and it sounds like a 18-year-old's girl writing on Reddit. That's what it sounds like. That is Qimir in the Acolyte. You took a cool villain and made him into a heartthrob, and it's just dumb. Like, yeah. No. Garbage. Absolute garbage. You ruined the only cool thing about your series. Eren Yeager. Thank goodness I have a good palate cleanser after Qimir. Eren Yeager is probably... Eren Yeager is probably the best representation of a fallen from grace character. Yeah, ever. Eren Yeager. Let me just tell you this right now. Attack on Titan got me into watching anime. Before Attack on Titan, I never really watched it. Like, I just didn't. After I watched Attack on Titan, I watched Vinland Saga, the original run of Berserk, and Jujutsu Kaisen. That is what Attack on Titan did for me, because when I said Breaking Bad is one of the most consistent shows ever made in terms of being 8, 9, 10 out of 10s, the only TV show that I would put against Breaking Bad in terms of being consistently great would be Attack on Titan. Eren Yeager, from going from a kid who just wants to, like, avenge his dead family, to take out these monstrous titans, to he has to commit genocide. He has to do the rumbling. Like, how do you describe that other than peak? The writing of Eren Yeager is so strong and so believable, even in the end, last season, like, I don't even know how, like, I can't say anything bad about it. Would I liked a bit more time with Eren Yeager? Yes, because I want to look more into his motivations, like the fact that he did all of this to protect his friends. He had to hurt his friends to protect them. He's a flawed protagonist because at the end of the day, this was a very flawed thing to do, but you understood. Attack on Titan made you sympathize with somebody that did what Eren Yeager did. I just want you to think about that. If you felt bad for Eren Yeager at any point, Attack on Titan did what it was meant to do. Peak. I'll put Homelander above Eren Yeager. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that is a tough one. I'm going to put Eren Yeager above Gustavo Fring, though. He's a peak. Not even a question in my eyes. Night King. I'm going to make so many people mad with this, but whatever. The Night King is the epitome of you had potential, but you fucking fumbled on the finish line. The Night King is the epitome of tortoise versus the hare. Night King is so, like, he is such an intimidating villain, literally the entire run of Game of Thrones. And then the last few episodes, you took care of him in half a season. Half of a shortened season, you took care of him. The final season of Game of Thrones actually ruins the Night King. What do you mean it was that easy? I hate the last season of Game of Thrones because it actually ruined the Night King as a villain. Like, it did. Like, here's the thing. Because we know so little about the Night King, I can't give them credit on the writing because so much is left ambiguous. But he loses the only thing that made him like a dreaded villain. And that was how intimidating he was, and then you lost it. I'm putting him in meh. I'm putting him in meh because of how much I hated the final season of Game of Thrones and how much it butchered the Night King as a character. It actually makes me that mad. Meh. Yeah, I gotta do it. Maul from Star Wars The Clone Wars. Now, here is the opposite. This is how you take a character that was so bland in The Phantom Menace and turn him into like a top 5 greatest villains in the entirety of Star Wars. Darth Maul is such a cool character. When you have like Anakin, who's a fallen Jedi turned Sith, you have a Darth Maul who's a fallen Sith trying to become his own thing and reclaiming his honor, trying to fight Sidious. Like, they did so many cool things in the Clone Wars TV show, and that was a kid's show, bro. Cartoon Network was on such a different type of timing back in the day. I'm glad I grew up when I did. Clone Wars was such a great TV show, and part of the reason was Darth Maul was such a good villain. I'm going to be honest with you. Darth Maul goes in great. He does. Actually, like, I have so many good villains on here, I'm going to put him in great. Like, honestly, yeah. Great. The Lich from Adventure Time. When I mean Adventure Time was on... No. When I mean Cartoon Network was on such a different level timing back in the day. Dog, we had the Clone Wars, okay? Clone Wars, regular show, Gumball, Adventure Time. What an insane lineup. And the Lich was such an intimidating villain from a kid's TV show, bro. I remember, like, I was asking my mom, like, hey, what Cartoon Network show do you remember me watching as a kid? She remembered Adventure Time because she thought Adventure Time was one of the edgiest kids' TV shows she's ever seen. And watching it back now, 100% agree. Like, Adventure Time, again, was also probably one of the best. So I would argue Adventure Time was probably the best of the big three lineup. Its only competition was regular show. But I would argue Adventure Time ended better than regular show did, but that's just a personal preference of mine. The Lich is such a great villain. I would have liked it they did more with him. I didn't like that they kind of made him a little bitch in the Fiona and Cake special. The fact that, oh, well, he's basically just like the messenger boy of like the devil, which is kind of dumb. I didn't like that they did that. And it's going to get... I'm not going to put him in great for that, but I am going to put him in... I think he's a good villain. I think he's a good villain. They messed up at the very end. You could have done more with him. Yeah, I would have liked a bit more lore on the Lich before I would put him in great. Omni Man. Omni Man is a weird one. This was a fan suggestion. Actually, from this point on, most of these are fan suggestions. Omni Man is such a good introductory villain for Invincible because it really sets the stage for, like, I'll tell you this right now. Before I got the spoilers and, like, went into what the comics are, I thought Omni-Man was going to be the big bad of the entire series. Spoiler, actually, it's not a spoiler alert. You've probably seen season 2. Omni-Man is not the big bad, like, at all. In fact, he becomes a good guy. Omni-Man in Season 1, however, is such a fucking menace every single time he's on in a scene. Invincible was one of those TV shows that nobody was hyped about, except for a select few people who knew about the Invincible comic line. That when the first season aired and we got Omni-Man just destroying the Guardians of the Globe, rip off the Justice League, it got people hooked onto the series because it introduced Omni-Man as a menace. I love Omni-Man, bro. It's difficult. I almost regret putting him on the list, but I want to put something from Invincible, and we haven't seen the big bad of Invincible yet. I think that's going to happen in either season 3 or 4. But Omni-Man, I have honorable mention. I'm going to put him above Darth Maul and great. These are, what a crazy lineup, dude. Come on, great. Sekuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. Yep, I got into Jujutsu Kaisen. I injected that shit into my veins. Season 1 is bad. I will defend this on the day that I die, okay? Some of y'all, when you hype up Jujutsu Kaisen as one of the best animes in the world, you need to remind people that about half of the entirety of the first season is pretty bad. If I had to, tell you, I would rather you watch the Jujutsu Kaisen movie. The movie that they made for Netflix, I think it's called Jujutsu Kaisen 0, actually does a better job of explaining the world that they are in than the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen. It is so weird to me that they made the movie after the first season when the first season is bad. You could cut out half of the entirety of season 1 is filler. Just is. The Jujutsu Kaisen movie, 0, peak. And then we get into Season 2. Season 2 is such a crazy improvement upon Season 1 that it's practically a different series. Animation got way better. Character development. Dude, the first 4 episodes of season 2 is a prequel explaining Gojo. And Gojo's I would argue, probably the most loved character in the entirety of the series. And they delve into his backstory and you love him even more. As a villain, but no, now we're going to introduce Sekuna. Sekuna is such a good, like, a good foil for the main character, Yuji Itadori. Yuji represents the good of humanity, helping people for the sake of helping people. Sekuna represents hurting people for the sake of hurting people. The strength will rule the weak, where Yuji represents the weak will inherit the world. And long story short, the writing of Sekuna, I think it's harder to make a villain that is just evil for the sake of being evil and making that well written. Now, granted, they have other characters that I would put up there. Like, I actually regret not putting Mahito on here. He's a great villain. Sukuna's a better villain. But because we only have 2 seasons, and they haven't done, I believe it's going to take 4 or 5 seasons with a few movies to get full Sekuna run, I'm going to put Sekuna at the top of good. I need to see more. They need to adapt him well for me to put him in the great. But I would argue, if they play their cards right, you could put Sekuna in peak. You could put him up there with, like, yeah, no, you could put him in peak if they do everything right. Fire Lord Ozai. Okay. Again, controversial opinion. Fire Lord Ozai is not that good of a villain. Legend of Korra had better villains. The villains in Legend of Korra were more well written than Ozai was. Ozai really is a bad guy for the sake of power. Is he bad? No. I think he is an overhyped villain. I really do believe that. I'm just going to say that. Like, I think Azula is a better villain than Ozai is. Ozai is more of an intimidating okay. Remember how I said in the beginning of the series, in the beginning of the video, that a good villain is very important for the sake of your TV show. The Last Airbender is a weird, like, sidestep of that. Because it had Zuko for Season 1, Azula Season 2, Ozai Season 3, but Ozai's talked about throughout the entirety of the series. Zuko is one of the best written examples of a villain turned a good guy. That dynamic carries the TV show more than Ozai does. Like, you ask me, what is the coolest part of Ozai? Yup, when he interacts with Zuko. I would have loved if it was Zuko who had to beat Ozai. I think Zuko is a better main character than Aang is. I'm sorry, blasphemy out. I am Zuko gang all the way. I loved Zuko. Even as a kid, he was my favorite character. No question about it. Ozai, I'm going to put at the top of meh. Top of meh. Because if you really boil it down, he's not that... Like, come on. The moment Aang stopped holding back, you got deleted. So not that intimidating, to be honest with you. Like, Zuko almost killed Ozai. I want you to think about that. Zuko almost beat Ozai. Aang destroyed him the moment he decided to take the gloves off. And as far as being well written, Azula and Zuko are better written villains. Meh. Bill Cypher. I just wanted to talk about Gravity Falls really quick. How the fuck does Velma get a season 2, but we can't get a spin-off of Gravity Falls? That is insane to me. Gravity Falls is one of the most widely loved TV shows from my generation that never got a continuation. Like, it wouldn't bother me if there weren't so many ways you can continue the story. Bill's not dead. Bill didn't die. That's been confirmed by the creator. You want to know what's effed up? You want to know why they never made a season 3? Because the creators of Gravity Falls didn't want to do it. Like, and he didn't want to do it not because he didn't have stories for it. No. He didn't want to do it because he didn't want to get in the way of family time. I get it. Pass it on, though. Sell off the intellectual property to somebody else. Like, I'm angry that Disney didn't push harder with a season 3 of Gravity Falls. Such a great series. Bill Cypher is a basic... Also, Gravity Falls did a great job of explaining, like, Lovecraftian horror. Bill Cypher is a Cthulhu-level god that you see him as, like, a triangle, like, Illuminati figure, because that's how your brain sees him. And he's like a trickster devil type of character. Like, come on. Like, yeah. I'm going to put him in great. I think he's at the same level of Sekuna in terms of being like a good villain. I would have liked a little bit more out of Bill. But we only really had 1.5 seasons out of him. That was it. Ramsey Bolton, to end it off with my Game of Thrones rant. Ramsey Bolton is like a better Joffrey. Where Joffrey is a hateable villain, but he's just not that intimidating. Ramsey is a super hateable villain, but ultra intimidating. When I talked about he is Joffrey, if Joffrey was like scary good at warfare, that is Ramsey. You hate this guy. Like, you hate him so much that he tortured a hated character and you started hating him. Like, that's how unlikable Ramsey Bolton was in Game of Thrones in its prime. And he was a pretty well-written character. He was chaos, he was pain for the sake of pain, and they did it well. He's a more well-written, more intimidating Joffrey. I'm going to put Ramsey Bolton at the same level as Sekuna, honestly. Yeah, I'm not taking that back. Ramsey Bolton's at the same level of Sekuna right now. Yes, love it. I think I did good with this ranking. Now, I know I'm missing a lot, but we would have been doing this all day if I included every single person that you asked for. And I want to make videos that aren't an hour long every single time because that makes the editing process easier on me. I can't afford an editor yet. One day that'll change. Thank you, everybody who continues to support my content. If you have a tier list that you want me to do, I have a few videos down the pipeline. I'm going to do that in the community post. But if you have a tier list you want me to do, put it in the Discord link down below, and I'll take a look at it. And if I like it, I'll make a video out of it. Thank you, everybody who continues to like and support my content. 50K by the end of the year, and I will see you all next time. Adios.